Good morning, dear friends and fellow alumnus. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. Your presence here retrieves the fact that you are keen on spending time meaningfully even on the weekend. We truly appreciate that. We are happy to organize these weekly webinars. ABN, founded in August 2017 with high aspirations, has grown from strength to strength, and the ongoing webinar series is an important milestone in the young history of ABN. ABN members work with leading global MNCs, Indian MNCs, product development, healthcare, oil and gas, infrastructure development, construction, core engineering, etc. Today marks our 14th webinar series, and we are proud to be able to host it. Before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who helped us make this webinar series come together to become a success. It will not be possible without your support and cooperation. You have all been a part of our ABN community due to mutual passion. Your passion helps us all to unite, and the energy we create is what allows us to achieve our individual as well as our collective goals. We need you all as much as you need us, and that's why we are grateful to have you join us here at the webinar organized by ABN, the business networking arm of IATA. In the coming months, you'll be learning about the different initiatives through our planned activities, webinars, etc., where you all will be able to join in and share your experience. I hope these will help you grow to be more productive. Today we have with us one eminent speaker from our alumnus, Mr. S. Krishna Prakash, and he belongs to the 81 batch mechanical engineering discipline. I have the pleasant duty of welcoming and introducing him today at Adapting to Evolving Business Trends and Interactive Business Networking session. A very warm welcome to you, KP, and we feel profoundly honored that you have taken time off on a Sunday to address us. KP co-founded the India practice of EMA Partners International, a leading global executive search firm, in 2003, and presently serves as its managing partner. He works closely with clients for board and CXO hiring, as well as leadership advisory, particularly in the industrial, automotive, life sciences, and healthcare sectors across EMA Partners offices in India. He also works closely with family managed business on succession and governance, as well as with private equity and venture investors to build leadership teams for the portfolio companies. KP has over 2.5 decades of experience in consulting and recruitment as a company, and with over 3 decades of management experience. He has done extensive customer and candidate side research and even more analysis to build his expertise, which could be a real asset to career aspirants nationwide and globally. At the root of his idea is the unlimited passion of understanding, of addressing India's employment needs and job market dynamism, and the practical consideration of making a viable business, which is the only way to ensure longevity. His expertise, meaning ideas in HR, technology, and business, has brought together ideas from different spheres of life, packaged in a usable form by both prospective employers and prospective employees. He will not only address a visible hole in the career employment fulfillment cycle, which also bring in a new thought process about how to look at a job change in the context of career upgradation, growth in role, pay and position, while keeping India's long-term competitiveness firmly in the radars as the core issue for sustained generation of jobs and long-term economic health. KP passionately believes in enhancing a client's capability through high-impact leadership appointments and is relied upon as a mature and trusted consultant by both clients and candidates. Early in his career, he worked in capital equipment sales with organizations that include Larsen & Toubro and Escorts. KP also holds a master's degree in business administration from LIBA. KP currently lives in Chennai with his wife, a banker. They have a law school student son. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. Today will be fun and full of learning. Thank you all. Over to you, Krishna Prakash.
Thanks, Gopi. Only half that bio was mine, actually. I think the rest Gopi had to put up it to himself. Anyway, thank you so much for the kind words. Thanks, Tariq and Gopi and the others for having me here. And all of you for joining me on a Sunday morning, allocating time on a Sunday morning. I know how tough our schedules are. So let me go to share screen.
Are you able to share? Yeah.
Can all of you see the screen?
Yes, KP. You can make it full screen.
Control L doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah. Control and L.
Control L is working, not working for whatever reason. I can't see. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay now.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Before we start, I just wanted to start off with a fun question. I just wanted to ask you guys, how many jobs do you think an average person changes during the course of his or her lifetime? Any guesses? Is it less than 5, 7, 10, 12, 15 more? You can put your answers in the chat box. Just give you 1 minute or so. Could you get the question?
Can you ask the question again, please?
I'm saying, on an average, how many jobs does a person change during his or her lifetime? What is the guess? Any guesses? Less than 5, 7, 10, 12, 15, 20? Gopi, you can access the chat.
Yeah. Tariq is
Anybody responding?
Yeah, lot of them.
Lot of people.
What is the
Average, they are telling 5 to 10.
Well, you guys will be surprised. The average number, actually, we don't have data for India, because India is not as organized as some of the other countries. But I have some US data from the American Labor Studies Institute of about 2-3 years back. The average person changes anywhere between 12 to 15 jobs per year during the course of his or her lifetime. And the last 2-3 years, it is supposed to have gone up even more. So this, talk about loyalty and hanging on the career, sorry, Sesh, doesn't seem to be working any longer. I'll begin by giving a quick overview of what we are planning to do over the next 45 minutes or so. First, I'll give you an sectoral update on what's happening in the various sectors in India, which sectors are doing well, which not particularly so, and so on. I'll also next give you a hiring update in specific reference to India. I then intend to cover the hiring process, what has changed, especially after the March pandemic situation. I'll also talk about the behavioral skill sets likely to be in demand. I specifically chose behavioral skill sets because functional skill sets can be learned. Behavioral skill sets are more difficult to acquire. So I think in future, the intent will be to focus on behavioral skill sets. I'll also give you a quick idea of what are the hot jobs as they look, when this is a constantly evolving thing, But as of now, what seem to be like the hot jobs for the next few years, and how can one get future ready, if at all? I also have some questions for self-reflection, especially for the non-entrepreneurs, people who want to be relevant and grow in their careers. Some questions to ponder about. There are some requests to cover SMEs and startups, so I made a brief attempt to cover problems in SMEs and startups and some suggestions on how to cope with them. I'll then move on to approaching PE and VC fund. A lot of these days, a lot of these companies are looking for PE VC funding. That's the flavor of the season. So how do you actually go about talking to a VP or VC? And finally, I'll end up with, many of you I know are already CXOs, but if you're looking for a next CXO role, some tips on how to go about doing that. Am I audible to all?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Great. So this is a sectoral update on specific reference to India. As you see, not all is negative. There are some sectors which have actually capitalized on the crisis and grown quite a bit. Surprisingly, pharma is not surprisingly, pharma is one of them. Most pharma companies are doing well. There could be odd exceptions in between the groups, but most pharma companies seem to be doing well. And with the vaccine, Dr. Reddy's, you must have noticed, has just signed an agreement with Russia's Sputnik to conduct trials on the Indian patients here. So most pharma companies are doing well. The one thing that has really done exceptionally well is the online education system. Byju's was last valued at about $10.5 billion. I don't know how many decades it takes brick and mortar companies to get that kind of valuation. Byju's is there in less than 5 years or so, or 10 years max perhaps. Imbibe is another one. Imbibe is now actually being bought over by Reliance. Online education is a big gainer in the current situation. FMCG companies have also done quite well because their supplies really never stopped. So you have the Daburs, the Britannias, and the Levers of the world. Online consumer companies, Amazon, Swiggy, Big Basket, they adapted quite well. Even when the food services were down or there were lockouts, a lot of them adapted very well, and they've done well. Sectors that have not done particularly, IT hardware has also done reasonably well. With work from home and all that, a lot of demand for laptops. So IT hardware sector has done quite well. Consumer durable space is probably one of the most hit along with automotive, although automotive seems to be showing some signs of recovery now, especially on the two-wheeler front. The other sector that has taken a severe beating is the brick and mortar retail sector. The likes of Big Bazaar, of course, which has now been acquired by Reliance again. PVR shares have really taken a nosedive. Industrials are kind of down or neutral. L&T reported a first quarter profit only because of other income, otherwise it would have been a loss. BHCL has also reported a loss in the first quarter. IT services are somewhat neutral. Some of these companies have actually gained because of digital interventions and so on. Otherwise, doesn't seem to have had a major impact, although it's early times yet, we need to wait and watch. We move on to the hiring update in India. I don't know if the numbers are very clear, but don't worry too much about the numbers. Just see the broad indications. I have sourced this from LinkedIn report of August 2020, so it's reasonably current. So what it says is that between April to June of this year, of 2020, hiring has actually increased by 35%. But we are still 50% down compared to the same April of 2019, which means that even though we are on the recovery path, there's still quite a bit to catch up. In the next slide is, the next part is about applications for job.
KP, I think your voice is.
I have my concerns about this because I have bad throat as well. So my apologies if I pause longer than usual.
KP, I think your connection, the voice is not coming. I think we have lost the connection. He'll join again.
I'm back again. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now it's clear.
I'm sorry for the patchy internet.
Yeah. You may have to start over from the second slide again, KP, because.
Yeah, I'll start over.
Yeah.
Can you see the share screen?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah, now it's clear.
Okay, I don't know where I lost you, but probably I'll repeat this slide. I wanted to give you a hiring. Did you get the first two graphs? Was I audible?
No, I think you may have to start all over.
Okay, great. So this is a hiring update trend sourced from LinkedIn of August, so it's fairly recent. Don't worry too much about the numbers, or if you can't read the numbers, I think that's okay. Broadly, we can see a trend. The first graph is how has leadership, not this is across the board, not necessarily leadership hiring. How has the hiring rate changed compared to last year? From April to June of this year, the hiring rate has actually gone up 35%, but we are still down almost 50% compared to April of last year, which means even though the graph is upward, we are nowhere close to what we were during April of last year. The second graph is on applications per job. LinkedIn reports a doubling of applicants per job from 90 to 180. But as I said, I have my concerns about this number because I'm very suspicious of the quality of candidates who have responded. The third graph is quite interesting. I mean, there are sectors like recreation and tourism, travel, which have got hit very badly. So this is trying to analyze how many people are willing to move out of the current sector or want to move out of the current sector into something new. So if you take manufacturing as the base at 1, you have recreation and travel, which is at the highest end, 6.8 times people. If one person in manufacturing wants to change to a different sector, there are 6.8 people in recreation and travel who want to change their sectors. 2.4 in retail, surprisingly, not surprisingly. Entertainment, again. IT services guys are quite happy where they are. That's the conclusion you can draw from this graph. Only 0.9 only want to change to a different sector. I'm audible now, I hope. Hello?
Yes, sir, audible. Yes, sir, audible, sir, audible.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, KP, you are audible.
I'll move on to the next slide. This is an interesting one. What really has changed in hiring process, especially from March or April or so? First thing I said is dichotomy. See, what happens is there are a lot of people who have lost their jobs and have been retrenched. They are not able to find new jobs. On the other hand, the existing candidate talent pool don't want to move because they think it's a risk moving at this point of time. So you have two sets of talent pools, one which don't want to move and the other one which has been retrenched but is finding it difficult to get jobs. The next thing is being tight on the budget. A lot of companies have announced salary cuts. So prospective new employers feel that they can match the current salary and get the guys on, but the candidates feel that they need a premium because it's a risky move. They perceive this to be a risky move at this point of time. So they want a premium. So there is again a huge gap and huge differential there between people who actually want to, what kind of premium people normally want to move jobs. Perhaps the most important impact is the tweaked interview process. In February or so, we had a mandate from a leading South Indian private bank for appointing a chairman and managing director. So and then the pandemic hit in March. April, we had the shortlist ready, but the client was reluctant even to have video interviews. He said he only wanted to meet candidates in person. They waited for a month, nothing changed. In May, they said, okay, let's start with video interviews. So interestingly, the whole process got completed. Offers negotiated, candidate shortlisted, offers negotiated and agreed upon. And the candidate actually joined in August without meeting the entire board even once. The first time they met him was when he actually joined the company in August. So traditional brick and mortar companies and companies which are otherwise averse to hiring virtually have gone the full hog. They've embraced virtual hiring completely. Of course, there is the next one is a reluctance in relocation. Even otherwise, people are reluctant to move from one city to another, especially people in Bombay or Delhi or even Chennai for that matter, are very reluctant to move out of the city once they establish a good base. So this is the current situation has made that relocation even more difficult. New onboarding. I think what has taken a hit is the so-called company culture. Because virtually there is no way you can explain a company culture to a person. Everything else may be possible. You can have meetings, you can make decisions, you can brainstorm, but ultimately you will not be able to imbibe culture. So, and that's going to continue for some time. So the talk about culture is perhaps going to take a backseat for some time. What are the long-term implications likely to be? As I said, even brick and mortar companies have adopted to virtual hiring. So virtual interviews might be the norm in the future. New ways of working are likely to emerge. So that those are, and then work from home is probably going to continue for a long time. there are companies which have announced that till the end of this financial year, they are going to allow people to work from home. So these are some long-term implications. Of course, there's a lot of uncertainty around hiring plans. People are not sure what the hiring budgets have to be, whether the market is going to revive or not. So how should they plan their the HR hiring plans? So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding that. I'll briefly look at what kind of behavioral skill sets might be required, to be changed. I specifically chose behavioral skill sets because functional skill sets are perhaps, in my opinion, a lot easier to acquire compared to behavioral skill sets. These are some of the skill sets I thought were important. Not that these were not important even earlier, but I think now it has become almost a must-have. Unless you have these kind of mindsets, you're unlikely to survive for a long time. Growth mindset. What I mean by that is that you cannot continue business as usual. Companies are constantly looking for top-line growth, especially the SMEs and the startups, because they want top-line increase for valuation. So unless they grow, and grow at a very quick pace, they are not happy. So business as usual mindset has to be replaced with growth mindset. Execution agility, I think what we mean is once making plans are all fine, but I think you need to execute them very swiftly. Unless you execute those plans, 1 year could make a lot of difference in the technology industry. Your plan might itself become irrelevant. So you'll have to execute quickly on the ground. Critical thinking is something that we all talk about, but it could be as simple as identifying fake news from real news. That's a commonly cited example for critical thinking. Looking at adaptability and flexibility on the go, I think Indian companies responded very well during the crisis. There are a lot of manufacturing companies which started making ventilators. Mahindra was an automotive player, but they started making ventilators within almost about 3-4 weeks of the pandemic setting in. A lot of companies started making masks. Consumer companies started making sanitizers and disinfectants and washing soaps and so on. So a lot of companies adapted their manufacturing lines very quickly and flexibly. So that is, I think, it's a great positive from the fallout of the pandemic, I think. Of course, risk-taking ability has to increase because the future, you're not likely to have a very steady, predictable environment. The environment is going to be completely unpredictable and mostly chaotic. So your risk-taking ability needs to be in tune with that. And finally, emotional intelligence will be valued over, Mensa kind of IQ intelligence. What I mean by that is that you'll have to set your personal egos aside, work for the larger organizational goals, carry the team with you, be able to resolve conflicts between teams or amongst teams, and go forward without personal biases. I think these are some critical emotional intelligence quotients to have. A very quick look at what kind of hot jobs. Of course, this is my prediction, not necessarily the view of the market or you. Everybody could have a different opinion. I've listed some hot jobs here. I think the fundamental thing I was wanting to talk about is technology is actually changing the definition of literacy. Previously, literacy meant reading and writing. Today, literacy would probably mean being familiar with the laptop and the computer and being able to work on that even in your day-to-day life. Some of you might have noticed the new education policy of the government of India has announced that they intend starting coding for students starting from class 6. So it's quite possible that literacy is quickly going to evolve, encompassing skills that extend beyond reading and writing with pen and paper. I remember a situation when my mom used to be very unhappy with my handwriting, so that is going to pass. Now today we need to be worried whether our children know how to use the keypad. I think those kind of skills are going to become more important. I've listed down some jobs. I think the common theme you will notice amongst these jobs is that most of them seem to be technology driven. But it impacts all sectors, it has already impacted the education sector, it has impacted the healthcare sector and so on. For example, Google is now working on autonomous cars, So is Google a technology company or an automotive company? I think the lines are blurring. Byju's is, a hot company now. So is it an online education company or is it a technology company? So what is a technology company and what is not is, these lines are blurring very quickly. All edutech, healthcare, and fintech especially, have caught on quite a bit. So I think we'll have to be all prepared with the fact that technology is going to drive our lives. So cloud computing and data science need not necessarily be restricted to just technology companies. It's going to be across the board. One small statistics which I show here is, the average tenure of middle and senior managers in the US. Why I've included this is because of the fact that people keep changing jobs. Like I told you at the start, they change almost 12 to 15 jobs during the lifetime, which means that they possibly change industries as well. And it's important that you acquire the skill sets required to survive in the new industry, for which technology is the prime driver. Some questions for ourselves, to see whether we are relevant, we will continue to be relevant in 5 years or so. First one is, what kind of skill sets do I need to be considered literate? When I say literate, I mean technically literate from a job in 5 years' time. How is technology going to have an impact on my role? Is it going to, or what kind of differences are likely to be? Am I prepared for that? How would the background of CXOs look in 5 years? For example, we are traditionally used to, CXOs coming from, let's say, the sales and marketing stream or the operations stream or the finance stream. Now, all that might change in the future. The chief data officer might actually become the CEO because the company is strongly technology driven. So we need to be prepared for that, fundamental shifts in the way CEOs are hired. Then you'll have to also think through what kind of trade-offs you're willing to make, Am I okay not learning the latest skill set required? Continue to stagnate in my job? Am I okay with that because I have a specific reason? What kind of sacrifice am I willing to make? Am I willing to let go of the current location and move to a different location? Am I willing to look at startups? Increasingly, I think people should be less and less averse to looking at startups, because startups, as I'll cover that briefly, during my last slide. Startups are a growth environment, so it's always good to hitch yourself to an industry which is in the growth phase rather than an industry which is in the dying phase in the product life cycle. And the most important thing that is, required for everything is the networking. I mean, what kind of network do you have at the moment? How can you strengthen it? I think these kind of initiatives that the university is driving through people like Tariq and Gopi, these are wonderful opportunities to network, find people who can help you grow in your career or your business, So networking is key to everything. I think presentation skills, networking and technology, these are the skills to have in the future. And these will stand you in good stead irrespective of whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee or a CXO. I'm not an SME or a startup expert, but I'm trying to have a quick look at what kind of problems SMEs and startups are typically facing. Why I've chosen SMEs, because larger companies will survive this onslaught, because they have enough cash, deep pockets, so they'll survive. But SMEs may not have those kind of deep pockets, so they need to react quickly and change the way they're working. Some typical problem areas in SMEs and startups. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this. There's been a huge drop in goods and services demand. I was talking earlier about how important the top line is, especially for a startup, because the entire valuation game is driven by top line and profitability. Not top line, not necessarily profitability. So I think preventing that erosion of top line is key, which is why you find all these companies pumping in more and more money to make sure the top line doesn't drop, especially the technology startups. Because companies are more worried about how many eyeballs you have, or your site attracts, rather than whether you're making profits or not. I don't know if that is the right way to do business. Only the future will tell. But unfortunately, that's the way business is being done now. And valuations that you look at are kind of crazy valuations. You feel how on earth companies can afford to pay those kind of valuations. The fact is they are happening all around us. Weak liquidity position. I think this is it. Here I want to have a small suggestion that SMEs. I know the government has announced a lot of moratoriums on payments and all that. My own advice would be that unless you really need it, because you will be caught in a debt trap. You find that you're 6 months behind in your payments, and you're caught in a perpetual debt trap. So unless you really need that moratorium, don't take it. Either in a personal capacity or for your company, avoid taking it to the extent possible. There's been a huge dislocation of supply chain and fluctuation or increase in price of raw materials. Delayed payments, we face all of this. All of us face this. Increasing defaults. Payments are getting delayed, especially from the government and the larger companies. I think cash is king now. So the most important thing to do in the short term is to chase the debtors and make sure you get your money on time. All this is leading to an increased risk perception for the company, which in turn will affect investor confidence. Some suggestions on how we can cope with the startups with these problems. On the right, you'll find, ironically, the Chinese word for crisis is VG, or I don't know, YG or VG, where Y means danger and G means opportunity. So ironically, the crisis has a dangerous component, but it also has a component of opportunity. So it is for us to actually seize the opportunity component. One of my first suggestions for all employers is that you look at employees as being your first concern, because they have gone through phenomenal changes in terms of working from home, having to deal with perhaps health conditions in their family, being quarantined, but still keeping the work going. So I think it's important that you acknowledge the concerns of your employees, engage with them, empathize with them, make sure your valuable employees don't leave you, even if it means short-term pain in terms of salary outgoes. I think it's well worth the while, because once the situation comes back to normal, you'll find it very difficult to attract good employees thereafter. The next focus should be on your customers and clients. Try and understand what kind of pain they're going through, how you can contribute to mitigating that pain. What else you're doing? Can you provide any other service which is of help to them in the short term? So think of those kind of opportunities. I covered this even earlier. Move with agility, execution agility I spoke about. Be flexible with commercials to the extent possible. I don't know, and I know it's a difficult situation to be in, but if it means short-term losses for long-term gains, I think you should look at that. Of course, the last thing is very extremely important. Invest in technology. There's no way you're going to survive if you don't invest in technology and being up to date as far as your sector is concerned. Quick look on how to approach PEs and VCs for those of you who are interested. PE and VCs are, all of you I'm sure would know, private equity and venture capitalists. These are people who typically fund startups at different stages of their evolution. I think the fundamental fact when dealing with the PE or VC is to first of all get yourself an investment advisor. I think that's the key step to approaching a PE or VC. It's never a good idea to approach the PE or VC directly. Investment advisors, even the larger ones today work on a contingent model, meaning that they take their fee only when they complete the assignment. So it doesn't mean any upfront. In most cases, it doesn't mean any upfront investment. You can engage an investment advisor because he's going to help you quite a bit. He can tell you what is the right time. Timing is everything. What kind of time should you approach the PE or VC? What kind of pricing you can look at? How do you position your organization before the PE VC? He can help you develop collaterals for all of that. I've tried and jotted down some, besides the usual things that you include in the PE VC pitch, like your financial models or covering the competition on the market, addressable market, and so on. I think fundamentally the PE or VC is into it because they want money. They want their investments to grow. Should never lose sight of that. So adding dollar value to your vision is the most important thing to grabbing attention. I mean, how can your business model add value to the existing clients, and therefore how beneficial can it be financially for the PE and VC? Said new ideas are good, business solutions are better, solution-driven roadmaps are the best. I'll tell you what I mean by this. Ola, when they first started off, they were an aggregator of cabs. So that was the business model. That was the idea. And business model was that they would not invest in the cars. They would ask the entrepreneurs themselves to buy the cars and run it. So that was a business model. But then when they entered the market, they saw that there are a lot of other business solutions required. For example, companies wanted to hire the cars for the entire day, or people wanted to hire cars for an entire day. Corporates wanted cars for their customers. Corporates wanted intercity travel, to be covered. So gradually you found that Ola and Uber are accommodating or moving along with the market and providing newer services which are in tune with what the market needs. And I think the other thing is, you have to have absolute clarity on whatever it is, whether it be your product, your service, your target audience, how will you go about acquiring customers and so on. And the most important thing is you'll have to outline an exit strategy for them, because P's and VCs are typically invested for about 5 to 7 years or so, and then they're looking at exiting and moving on to the next project. Also, you should understand that if PE VCs receive about 100 proposals, the typical hit rate is, for success is about 10%. So only 10 cases out of 100 get funded. So you should look at that probability and make sure that you have outlined a good exit strategy for the PEs. It could be an IPO, it could be a sales to some other PE, but you need to have an exit plan in about 5 to 7 years. The other thing to understand about PE and VCs is that they can do much more than bringing in just the money. PE and VCs are extremely, powerfully networked. They can open a lot of doors for you. They can, get you new business. They can show new growth avenues for your business. So utilizing all of that, leveraging the PE strength is critical. You don't just view them as a money machine, but make sure you utilize their full strengths. A lot of these PEs, like KKR, for example, have an operational arm also, where they have operating partners who actually go and run the company. Recently, we had there's a private equity firm called People Capital in Chennai, which is invested in Medol. So we had a situation where the People Capital partner actually quit the company, and he's now the CEO of Medol, because they're looking at an IPO in about 2 to 3 years' time, and that could be it could be a 700 to 1,000 crore gain for them. So it is so important that the PE guy himself is coming and running the business. PEs, of course, could also help you in financial restructuring because they're masters at financial strategy. Operational excellence, I just spoke about that. Finally, I know many of you are CXOs, but if you're looking for a next CXO, what are some points to keep in mind? I think here again, network is the key thing, because today's job market, very few jobs are advertised, and companies don't reach out directly at CXOs level. So the important thing is that you have a very strong network within your own industry and outside, and have a good relationship with big search firms, because they are the ones calling all the shots in leadership hiring. The other thing is, always be open to hearing about opportunities. I've found candidates who say that, look, I'm not even interested, without hearing what I have to say. Never do that. If it doesn't matter if you're not looking for a job. You can always hear the other person out. You can probably suggest a friend if you're not interested. But it's always good to establish a relationship with a search firm. The worst thing to do is, not listen to them and tell them that you're not looking for a job. You're only blocking your own opportunities. You never know when you need their help. Here again, private equity and venture capitalists have a lot of say in, especially startup level hiring. So having a good network with PE and VC funds are important. As I said, avoid risks. Avoiding risk leads to stagnation. So some amount of risk-taking ability. If you're making a jump, then you have to make a jump of faith, because that is what can set you up for success. I was talking about pivoting industries. I spoke about it in the first or second slide when I said people are willing to move across industries to grow. Recently, we had an example in Singapore. Our Singapore office was in touch with the HR person of Airbnb. And Airbnb, as you know, most of them are going through extremely difficult times, probably a year or two before they're going to get back to anywhere near pre-COVID levels. So this HR person was looking for a job, and she was very clear she wanted to move into an industry independent of the size of the industry. She actually moved to a company called Doctor Anywhere, which is somewhat like our, the Practo kind of a model. But Doctor Anywhere is considerably smaller than Airbnb. But then she thought it is an industry which is set for growth over the next few years. So you actually sacrifice scale for growth. That is how you grow. So that is pivoting. I think pivoting is very important. I remember about 10-15 years back, people from Hindustan Levers or Procter & Gamble would never talk to search consultants because they said, no, we are in the best company. And then the telecom service came, and they started attracting huge talent, especially from the consumer companies. And then all these levers guys lined up to join telecom companies. So if you look at top telecom companies starting from Gopal Vittal of Airtel, all of them have come from Hindustan Lever kind of backgrounds. And now the telecom boom is kind of wearing off. So telecom guys are again now looking to move at consumer, online consumer services companies like Ola or Uber or Swiggy and so on. So you'll find a lot of these. So pivot. So what they're doing is actually pivoting. They're moving from one sector to another. Some synergies they can carry, others they'll have to unlearn. But then pivoting gives them a significant quantum jump in their career. So this is it by and large. To conclude, we're definitely living in uncertain times. Certainly living in uncertain times. But as they say, this too shall pass. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, KP. It was a very crisp and to the point presentation covering, but the entire gamut of lifestyle and industries. Now, I will request Mr. Vishwanath, our 82 batch, to take the questions. And if someone wants to ask questions directly, we'll leave the floor open as well. You can please go ahead asking the questions.
My first question, this is Vishwanath, my first question from Mr. Stalin. I'm sure many of us have watched the interviews of Suresh Sambandam, who talks about the fifth wave required in Tamil Nadu. Is it about the development of entrepreneurship? Does it come through development? Is it not something innate with people? Can you answer on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get the question.
The question is, there is a guy who's called Suresh Sambandam who comes on, and a lot of his clip is going around saying that Tamil Nadu is requires a fifth wave.
Right.
Does it come through development of entrepreneurship? Does the state do the development, or is it not something innate with people who want to, who are entrepreneurs and who want to grow? That's a question. Is it got to do with the state doing something or the people doing something?
I think it's always a combination. You cannot, exclude the state, nor can you exclude the individual. I think some of the best partnerships that have worked are the PPP models. Okay. Healthcare, for example, has taken the PPP model now, and those are doing extremely well. Multinationals have also got into the PPP model with healthcare, with the governments. The NGOs like, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they have joined hands with government. So that is on the healthcare side. On the education side, I can think of companies like Wipro and HCL, which have, made a huge impact on, especially school level education, primary education. They've made a significant impact, especially in the, the Bimaru states, as they say, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, where the gross enrollment ratio is fairly low. But these kind of companies, what they have done is actually taken up the existing infrastructure of schools and then change the methodologies. They've gone to online teaching. So PPP models have worked very well in most sectors. It will work well in healthcare. Any sector requiring scale is difficult for just the private sector or just the government to, to make a difference. I think a PPP model works best. That is my view. I don't know what the others have to say.
My own question, the next question is, at what stage do you approach a PE? I mean, what is the kind of turnover when you, does it excite them? Is it just a story or the size of the company?
I think it is the other way around, Vish. Okay. It depends on when you want the fund. Okay. See, if the ideal thing is, if you don't need funds, I would say don't go to PE or VC at all. Why would you want to part equity if you don't want funds? Then bootstrap it on your own.
Okay.
Okay. When you feel that you're not able to scale up because of funding, that is the time you want to go to PCs. Okay. And PE VCs always like to see you have some skin in the game. It's not that you will have 0% and expect the PE guy to pump in 100% and then you'll use his money. It doesn't work that way unless you're a Byju's.
No, I'm asking a question like, do you read 10 crore and, revenue and then approach them, or 100 crore revenue and approach them? At what stage do you approach
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't depend on revenue at all. There are 1 crore companies which have got funding. There are 1,000 crore companies. TAFE, for example, is a classic example. Yeah. TAFE must be a 15,000 crore company.
Yeah.
Because it has never gone outside for funding because they don't need funding. It's a cash-rich company. So the valuation is, it's quadrupled. They may be silent, but they've got significant valuation. So it has got nothing to do with your turnover, or it depends on what stage you think you need to scale up and whether you have the funds for it. If you have the funds in-house, use it. I think till the time you actually need the fund, you don't have funds anymore and you want outside support. I think the best ones have bootstrapped it themselves.
Okay.
And the other thing is, of course, that is why I said take the help of an investment advisor, because those guys know best. Yeah. When should you, go to a PE? Is the market ripe for your kind of a product or a service? They'll be able to give you enormous value on that.
Okay. Next question is from Chokkaya. Presently, many of the top management recruitments are either stopped or put on hold. When is it expected to be revived? Can you throw some light?
I don't agree with that. I wouldn't make a blanket statement saying that top recruitments are not happening. They are happening, and it's very difficult to predict. when can we find a COVID medicine? I think that time probably the sentiment will improve. And nobody has an answer to that. Neither do I.
Okay. Okay. Especially manufacturing, they are automobile manufacturing. Do you have
manufacturing? Surprisingly, which is bounced back. You know,
Okay.
I don't know if Anand is in the call, but Anand of TVS was telling me the other day that September end they should be more or less at pre-COVID levels.
Yes.
You want to add to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the passenger vehicles seem to be coming back pretty sooner than expected. Two-wheelers are almost at the last year's level, and this month probably we should be surpassing the last year, and so are the cars. So the commercial vehicles are a bit slow. Otherwise, we are back to normal.
Is it because public transport is still not doing well? People are afraid of going in public transport. Is it the reason that this two-wheelers and passenger cars
actually
are
help.
bouncing?
Oh.
Yeah, sure. That could be one of the possible reasons.
Okay. There is the next question from Pasupati Prasad. He's actually, I think, calling from Singapore. As you rightly said, the business has taken a paradigm shift. Like nobody thought Zoom will complement airlines. And then people are able to connect globally without traveling. Do you think e-commerce will be sustained after COVID when the situation becomes normal? Teenagers may do online ordering irrespective of COVID. How about other people, touch and feel kind of people, how they will cope up? And that is Pasupati Prasad. Prasad is from Singapore. He's asking a question.
This is a generational shift. Entire generations have adapted technology. My mother, who's 78 now, is now on WhatsApp, and she's I never thought she would adopt, but it took her a couple of days, and then she's on WhatsApp and she's doing fine. So my father-in-law, who's 82, is ordering his groceries. He was forced to because they could not step outside. And how do they survive? I mean, they need vegetables to eat, they need groceries.
Okay.
So he uses Swiggy with great degree of comfort. So embracing technology is it's a mindset thing. It's nothing to do with age. I mean, how difficult after all is it to operate a Swiggy or a WhatsApp?
The next question is from Srikanth.
I don't know if that answers the question though.
It's actually rhetoric, you just answer. People, you gave it's not an answer really. It's
no, I just want to ask the question actually. Yes, I do agree. Old people can able to adapt the technology. Not many, because still people are having a touch and feel. Will they be able to shift to this kind of?
It is sector specific. For example, elderly people. For example, if my father-in-law is wanting to buy an instrument that helps him with mobility, that is something that you can't unless you visit the store and feel it yourself. That's something you can't do. So, which is why you find some of these furniture players, for example, have adopted. Levi's, for example, Levi's in Singapore has adopted to this extremely well. What they have done is they've had mobile stores. So, and they moved to apartment complexes. I've seen this happening in Chennai also recently. Domino's is following it. Levi's is following it. So, what they do is actually they stack up all the shirts and jeans or t-shirts and jeans, whatever. They put it in a in a truck with good comfort and sanitized trucks, and they take it to apartment complexes, and so people can actually walk into it. It's one of those very large container kind of trucks. It's almost like a shop floor experience. You can feel it, and then you order online. So you can see the entire range that is available, feel the texture if you want to feel it, and then order online. Domino's has introduced pizza truck, so they go to apartment complexes, and then so people are finding ways to innovate to give the look and feel experience. Levi's did that because exactly what you said. I mean, people want look and feel experience. If you're buying a pair of jeans, then you want to feel how good the texture is. Even though it is Levi, you want to feel the texture. Does it stretch or so on? So they've adapted to this experience. So I'm sure companies will find ways to fulfill that as well. Who knows? You might be able to do it on a computer one day.
Actually, kids have been doing it for the last 5 years. My daughter used to visit shops in T Nagar and note down the manufacturer and order online. So, I mean, as you said, the new generation is even smarter than, they were combining already for the last 5 years. Next question is from Srikanth. Yeah, you want to say anything, Prasad?
No, I do agree that
yeah.
my colleagues in Nanagar, Chennai branch, they are ordering socks on Amazon rather than walking across the street for 100 feet. Such a also has come. Just socks. I mean, I'm just saying that. I only want to have another question. Do you think that Zoom will be a total paradigm shift for the airline travel? Because see, global, all the CEOs are traveling for the board meeting and things like that. Now Zoom has become very, very comfortable and nice quality and voice data, everything. So do you think that really people have to travel? See, expos?
You can't eat company food and conference food, you know, on Zoom.
Yeah. So it may cut down a lot of cost, you know, these overhead costs and all that.
True, but there is always that personal connect that you need to have. You may not see what I think is likely to happen is is a model that settles somewhere between working completely from office and completely from home. People might start going to the office maybe 2 days to get that personal touch that you're talking about. The rest of the time when they don't need to go or don't need to see, you have to meet clients. You can't meet clients virtually all the time. You get a gut feel. You can't get a gut feel over a call or a video call. Gut feel works when you see the person in face to face. So I think the model will settle somewhere between completely working from home and completely going to office.
Yeah.
So that you have the best of both worlds, which itself is a great progress, I would think.
You need to have the nudge and the wink and the nod and all those things. You can't do it on a Zoom call. Especially, somebody else is watching what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was talking about the bank earlier. Their main concern was what if he's 4 feet 10 inches? I see him on LinkedIn and we're hiring him as the chairman and managing director of the company. I can't ask him what is your height. So that's a practical problem. I mean, you don't want a 4 feet 10 chairman managing director of a 10,000 crore bank, right? So those are some issues, but this will get addressed.
Yeah.
It's a bias, I know,
Yeah.
but still, you need a certain executive presence for a certain job.
Okay. There is a question from Srikanth from Salem. Srikanth was very modest when he said he makes electrical goods. Actually, he gives a run for money for the likes of AABN and those kind of companies, but he's very modest. He says, how do we increase our employee involvement in their jobs? Because there is only so much salary we can give, especially in small companies.
What exactly do you mean by employee involvement?
Srikanth, can you unmute and come online?
Yes, sir. Sir, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you fine.
We
Can
can.
go ahead.
Sir, what we mean by employee involvement is, see, they need to be told what needs to be done every time. See, we have people in our companies that have spent at least 10 years, 14 years with us, but still they miss out on things which they've already been told before to do.
It's a communication gap, if you ask me. It's not a.
Sir, we have communicated to them that, look, see, I'll give you an example, sir. We have a supervisor in a fabrication section. So he is supposed to maintain all the welding machines. So he needs to check the level of gas and so on. But every year when there is a ISO inspection, there is a potential non-conformance saying that, this gauge is not working. How do I get this guy to get involved and do it?
Just replace him with somebody better.
Srikanth, you can ask him to be your contract manufacturer. Then he will take care of the machines very well. Instead of paying salary.
No, I know what you mean. It's a genuine difficulty, but how will involvement help? If you give him 1% of the company, will it help? I think it's.
No, sir. That's what I'm saying. See, there is only so much we can pay. How would we see? These people should take ownership, isn't it, sir? I mean, it's his job after all.
He take ownership. You are the owner. Why will he take ownership? He's coming to do a day job.
But sir, he has to do at least his job.
No, that is true. Absolutely, I agree with you. I think that comes from constant coaching, maybe closer supervision. I don't know who his immediate supervisor is, but perhaps he has to monitor more. Why do you wait till the last minute to find out it's not working? Why is the supervisor not highlighting it before?
He is a supervisor, sir.
No, I'm saying he must also have a boss, right?
I mean,
no, it's very difficult to give you a practical answer to that. I don't know if any of the others have any suggestions.
My suggestion, because I run a very small company, is make them contract manufacturers. You give the same machine to him and say per day you produce so many pieces or whatever it is, he will do a great job. Because in fact, don't ask him to come do a 9 to 5 job. Give him flexibility of time. He has to complete quality, everything. He will do a great job. Develop entrepreneur out of him.
Wish.
Yes.
Wish we have Sriram with us today. A lot of quality guests have come, and Sriram, actually this morning I saw his video.
Okay.
The association that he's scaling up from 2,000 people company to 10,000 people company.
Wow.
Oh.
So we can have Sriram put his views as well. Sriram.
Tariq, I thought you were about to say we can all apply for his company. I mean, that also is a good idea. Okay, Sriram, the floor is yours.
KP, it's a very crisp and excellent presentation, KP. So
Thank you.
Valuable learnings for me, because a lot of trends, so many trends you have touched upon, whether it's a behavioral or new CEO, CXO, not from the same. So normally we'll be looking at either from sales or finance or operations, different perspective, a lot of learnings. For me, one question I want to raise. So we are a services company. So already we are into products as well. So software products, and we are having two divisions, and we are expanding. So services mindset is different from products mindset. Have you got any experience, anything you want to share, your perspective, your previous experience, KP?
No, I think ultimately it has to be customer driven, Sriram. Whether it's a product or a service, you'll have to see what is best for the customer or the client. So in that, I don't see a fundamental difference. Ultimately, you'll have to do what is best for for the client and your own employees. First comes the client and then the employees. So fundamentally, I don't think there is a difference. People should be able to adapt.
People are talking about services mindset is different from product mindset. So that is the reason I'm asking, KP. What you are telling is right, because customer is a customer. So whether it's a services or products, I fully agree with you. Is there anything we should look at operationally so that...
No, I'll tell you one thing. What, when you move from products to services or services to products, for example, the mindset in products is to minimize cost, because these are margins are very thin, and you're always stretched on cost. Anand is there; he can talk more about it. You're always struggling. You cannot go to Maruti and never ask for a price hike. Every year you go to them, they're asking you for a price reduction. Services, your margins are a little bit more comfortable, so people tend to be more extravagant in their ways, if I may. So I think bringing that thrifty mindset to the whole process is what you need to acquire when you move from product to service. You need to be more cognizant of the cost that you're incurring and make sure that your margins remain, what you want them to be.
One more question. Thanks, KP. One more question. So you touched upon briefly on culture, because we are during this time also we are hiring people. So close to 200, 250 people we are hiring. So one is hiring is remote hiring, so training remote on the induction. But once we are into the business, they start delivering. So we are seeing some gaps. So is there anything we should look at? That is one. Second one, culture, how we can inculcate, because so ours is a culture-driven company, because that's very, very important. How we can inculcate, because they are all working remotely. So there is a
how would you define your company culture? What is your company culture?
So one is we are talking about it's a performance-driven company. So we are talking about transparency. So these are all the points. Just I'm giving a few pointers.
No, I think culture is best imbibed when it is demonstrated personally from the top. Okay. If we're talking of transparency, then how communicative or transparent is the CEO with his next level and his the levels below. So it all starts from we say living the values. Values and culture are fairly intertwined. So you say that culture and values, you'll have to live it. The top team has to live by those standards of culture and values, and that's how it percolates through the team. Communication probably will not help so much. You can put up a notice on the wall saying that we'll be transparent, we'll be ethical, and all that, and then you bribe a contractor. Nobody's going to take you seriously. And you say ethical, you'll have to actually walk the talk. And it starts across all the levels. You say that we have zero tolerance for non-ethical behavior and live by it. That's when the culture imbibes, and they know that these guys will not be. You cannot mess around with them. So I think you have to live the culture from the top. That's how it gets in. That's my view.
I fully agree with you. So the remote working, so how we can do? Is there any other practices or anything? Is that I fully agree with you. Whatever points you are talking about. Is there any model? So because when we are not meeting them, so in person. So and how we can inculcate? That is the point.
Yeah, I know culture is a little tough to inculcate remotely.
Okay.
I really don't have an answer to that.
Okay.
Maybe communication will help in the interim. Give a past example saying that we had this situation where we had an option to do A or B, but we thought B is the right thing to do, and that is what we did.
Okay.
Keep talking of examples and case studies where you have lived by your culture. Communicate that to the newcomers. Then they know exactly what your culture is. What you expect, what kind of values you expect from them. That's one way to partially address it out.
Thanks.
There's a question from Vinod Vasan, and he is 2002 mechanical. He says automobile and all is okay. What about fashion and apparel retailer segment? Very slow, very minor. Where do you think it will go from here? Fashion and apparel. So this is
apparel. There's a shift. People are moving to loungewear compared to office wear. Online apparel is doing reasonably well. Brick and mortar has to wait. There is no other go. You'll have to wait.
Okay. And from Murugesh, how is pivoting seen in India? Is it encouraged?
Of course, it is encouraged. I just gave an example of people from Hindustan Lever moving to telecom. There are certain industries, for example, airport safety. When we were working earlier with GMR or GVK, they wanted airport safety heads. You don't find them in India. So they moved people from the hospital sector into that. So what is important? Important that you take critical care of your clients, customers, or they can be patients, they can be customers, or they can be aircraft or assets. So mindset is important. Pivoting is accepted quite well. I mean, there are certain industries, for example, pharmaceutical, for example, is a very closed industry. They want to hire operations guys more often than not. They would want to hire only from another pharmaceutical company. But once they hire from an automotive company, for example, for operation, and they see the value of it, then they change. Startups are more welcoming of pivoting than I would say, the established brick and mortar companies. It's a function of demand and supply. If there's enough demand from within the sector, then they're hardly likely to look outside. But if demand is not met by supply, then they look for people from adjoining industries.
There's a question from Pratap. It's a 2001 chemical engineering. He says we are a bootstrapped, sustainable bedding company, 4 employees. Most of our key functions are outsourced. Digital marketing, manufacturing, logistics, everything is outsourced. So is it possible to maintain this as we grow? Everything we have to bring it in house, or can we still be like a 4-man company with all extra outsourcing all other activities?
The model works well for you. Why not? I mean, continue.
Okay. Yeah. Is from Sitaram, ex-BPCL. Even though it became a BSU by best interaction and style of functioning culture, he's giving an information. Is Sitaram 75 mechanical? He says it has a great culture and has been maintained to a great extent, though it is a public sector company. Just more a comment than a question.
Yeah.
So
there are very well-run companies. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
public sector also can do. Yeah. That's it. Any other questions? I think you can unmute it. Tariq, people can directly ask questions if they want.
Yeah, I have enabled people can unmute and ask. And Mr. Vijayan is there from the construction industry. If he has anything to add or ask. So Vijayan, can you unmute?
Nothing much, Tariq.
Sir, this is Srikanth again. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
KP sir, this is not directly related to your presentation, but what is your opinion about the e-vehicles segment, sir? Because there's so much talk about e-vehicles, 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers. What is your take on this? Is it really going to catch up? How do you see the market for these?
No, there is no doubt that the future is going to be driven by electric and autonomous vehicles. It's a question of ramping up infrastructure, charging and batteries. That is the challenge. And of course, the oil sector's lobby is quite powerful. So it takes some time to evolve. But e-vehicles definitely are the future. There is no doubt about that. And that is going to span everything from 2-wheelers to passenger cars to trucks and buses. So e-vehicles definitely the future. There's no doubt about that.
So I'm a 2007 batch Triple sir. I'm doing robotics and automation business. So what about the robotics engineer and automation investments in upcoming days? Because we are supplying welding robots, handling robots to all kind of customers. There are a lot of manpower they are suffering. So last 3 months the inquiries are good, but still the inquiries will be not converting because of the fund issues is there. But what about the people mentality? How they are ready to go for the robotics and automation technology very immediately? It takes time, sir, actually.
No, robots and cobots, you would have found they figure in my list of hot jobs. So
Okay.
that's definitely the future. I think supply could be an issue for you. You may not be able to get the right qualified candidates for you. I think one suggestion would be, if you have an industry forum or something, why don't you think of tying up with some educational institutions and getting specific training, final year of diploma program
Yeah.
or program,
Yeah, we have a training institute also. We have a training institute. We are providing training to we are the first robotics training campus in India, actually.
So supply is not a problem.
The supply is not a problem, but the problem is students are ready to come to this panic situation. They want to come to training institute. That is a major challenge.
So they don't want to come to your institute.
Yeah, because the COVID issue, actually.
Oh, you can't teach it remote, obviously.
Yeah, we are running the online courses, but robotics technology online courses is not sufficient for the skill. So we need people want to come to our campus. That's happen, but little bit have a worried about the fund based. People don't have a budget. How they can implement this kind of technology? That is a major question, actually.
So people will always have a budget for technology. I mean, they cannot do it, or if they need to do it, they need to change technology, they will. They'll find a way to fund the project.
Okay.
I think that I think will get resolved. But getting your people to come to campus is a bit more difficult. It's a more tricky situation. I think you can, if you're confident enough about your protocols, then you can say that, look, this is the kind of protocol we have. We were all afraid of going to saloons some time back, but now we're going to saloons because we're convinced about the kind of protocols they have. So if you can demonstrate your protocols and prove that they're reasonably safe, then I think you probably see greater success.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So this is Pratap here, 2001 Chemical. I just asked a question. You said you can continue with your business model. I have a question, sir. One more question. Since we are like 4 people and most of our jobs are
I'm not an expert. Sorry, Pratap. I'm not an expert on outsourcing, but that is my
no, it's not about that, sir. My question is, since you talked about PVs and investors, will it be a hindrance if we go for funding? They say, no, it's a very small company, you have outsourced everything. Will it become a hindrance, or should we have more in-house team for everything? That is my question, sir.
No, you say you're bootstrapped, right? So why do you want to go to a PE?
No, so as we scale up, we cannot continue. As you said, we may have to pivot.
As long as the business model is right, they would not have a problem. But see, typically PEs would like to see the technology in-house, because if you're outsourcing it to everybody, then tomorrow a competitor can come and do the same thing, right? So you have no particular USP in that. That is the downside to it.
Fine,
so
sir.
Model is easy.
What we are making is a heirloom product. So we are just giving a modern to it, nothing but a mattress and pillows. So no great technology is involved, but we make difference in terms of.
As an entrepreneur, you should also try and see if you can create an entry barrier for competition. So you need to think about that before you go to a PE or VC. Somebody can easily copy your model and undercut you on price, and you're out of business, right?
Right, sir. Right, sir. Got it, sir.
Try and see how we can build an entry barrier. Maybe a unique design that is only they can give only to you, or something like that.
That is what we are right now doing. So we have developed in-house design, and we are offering those products.
Okay.
And second thing, you told about the Levi's and how they are taking the experience store to the customers, because ours is an online bedding company. So we are wondering like how we can give the touch and feel mattress. Everyone wants to touch and at least sit in it for 5 minutes or something. That's a good point what you told, like how Levi's is arranging trucks to go reach people. Maybe we will try to explore if that can be used instead of having a physical store, if this can be, a model can be replicated. So that's a good a point from your presentation.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.